talking about. Here's a question I have. May I have the attention of the people here in the... There's just a bunch of yentas out there. All they want to do, a bunch of caquerones just want to talk. Here's the question. And just think about it. Why do you take us, whether it's Curtis SLIWA, whether it's Lionel, whether it's yours truly, whether it's Jay, whether it's Lynn, why do you take us so seriously? Why do I get calls from... Usually these are guys who tell me something Lynn said that is upsetting them so much. Why? No, really, I'm not asking this to elicit laughter, although I don't mind laughter, but really, why do you take us so seriously? And nobody knows why. Well, it's a good thing they do, otherwise they might not listen, right, Lionel?
I think you're onto something, Bob. You know what's also interesting, too, is it's not so much that, but don't you wish one day you could do a show for one day, and they guaranteed you, whether it's the government or ABC, but they could say, Bob, anything you want to say it. However you want to say it. You want to curse? So curse. Whatever. Wouldn't you love if this really were a free country where you really could say what you want? You wouldn't have to, couch it and phrase it and use euphemisms and talk around it. Wouldn't you love to call up and say, Jay or Curtis or whatever, I think you're full of, and just say it? Wouldn't it be wonderful? Do you realize the restriction, supposedly this First Amendment that we live under? We really can't say much of anything, not what we really want to say. That's what I want, one day.
Yeah, but Lionel, I think we have enough of that already on the airwaves. The profanity, the filth.
I'm not talking about somebody who's being gratuitously filthy just for the sake of it. But I mean somebody, for example, being able to say something that might be politically disadvantageous, something that's not popular, a thought that you truly believe in, without worry about being picketed or some group being upset or some... That's what I wish one day, where we really could have a short wave, maybe. Who knows?
What he's saying, maybe you in the public can't appreciate as much as we, who do what we do, can. And what he's saying is not that we don't give our honest views, because I can tell you we do. It's in expressing those views... euphemistically, perhaps, cutting here, edging there. You are not getting the naked truth. Maybe semi-dressed, but you're not getting the naked truth. And what he means is, I remember one time somebody asked me, what would you do if you were the dictator of the United States, you had complete control? Not too long ago that question was asked. I said, well, if I told you, I wouldn't be back here tomorrow. So what I will do is take a moment of silence, and I will think my answer to you, and that is what I did. I thought my answer, and I was being sincere. Just like if you cut the cake and somebody says, make a wish, you really, it seems immature, but you're thinking, I wish so-and-so. And I was really thinking about what I would do. I guarantee you, if somehow or other electronically, my thought waves could have been transformed into verbiage and it was heard on the radio, I would not have been back the next day. As a matter of fact, I would have been consigned to a small, tiny island somewhere in the South Caribbean.
But let's say, Bob, we're targeting somebody for criticism in whatever manner you want to shape it, in freedom of speech and just letting the words flow. I think that those individuals who are under attack have to have some remedy, some method of appeal in which they get some time in which they can be your adversary. Because I think...
This is the fairness doctrine again.
Of course, because we're in a candy store. We're talk show hosts. We love to bash and trash people, but God doggone, if anybody has an opportunity to take us on equal footing, we get all afraid that somebody's going to take away our toys. I think the best interviews are when you're on with an adversary. I would pay money to see Bob Grant debate Mario Cuomo. I would put it on show TV, pay-per-view. It would help offset the budget deficit. I think the best interviews of radio is when you put two adversaries together, you give them equal time, and you let them go at it, and then let the person listening decide who has the merit in the argument.
They did that with Lynn and Barry Farber.
Oh, that's right. And it was a day of infamy.
They also tried that with Lynn and Jay Diamond.
I must have repressed it. I
See, but
can't
this
remember.
is a very scary notion here. You know, the fairness doctrine is going to raise its ugly head again. And it sounds wonderful. It's a nice name, don't you think? Fairness doctrine. Let's all be fair. Let's let the little man have the chance to come in and say, I want 2 hours of your show to give my point of view. Do you have any idea the problems that would cause? This isn't fair. This isn't fair. The newspapers aren't fair. When Mark Zuckerman comes out and says, I think the embargo is wrong, that's not fair. The idea in this country is you want to go against him, form your own paper. Nothing's fair. It's not like you have, just because I say, for example, Bob Grant says something about, I don't know, whoever. They should not necessarily, by virtue of the fact that they've been the subject of a Bob Grant barb, they shouldn't be able to demand X amount of studio time to invade WABC against the wishes of the programmer or you, just because in their mind they think fairness dictates that. It's a wonderful concept, but I'm telling you right now, whether you're conservative, liberal, libertarian, doesn't matter. Whenever you hear this word, the fairness doctrine, or this term, be very careful. It's not fair.
As a matter of fact, Lionel's absolutely right. The fact of the matter is, we keep getting a lot of attention about talk radio. I've been doing this since November 9th, 1963. I was 2 years old at the time I started, obviously. For a long time, we didn't get much attention, but now everybody's interviewing us. They had a camera crew up yesterday. They're doing a documentary again on talk radio. One of the reasons, in addition to our obvious talent, of course, one of the reasons for the huge success of talk radio all around the nation, not just WABC, but there's a couple of stations elsewhere in the country that have also had tremendous success. In all seriousness, the whole format has had tremendous success. The major reason, in my opinion, is the removal of the fairness doctrine.
Yes.
I know what it was like to broadcast during the days of the fairness doctrine. It was absurd. We'd be in an election campaign and have to let the audience guess who we were for. How unreal, how dishonest. It's a
Bob,
fake, phony fraud.
That's not what I'm talking about. You want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm saying if you've taken somebody on and you've editorialized against them for 20 minutes, a half hour,
Are they
an
a
hour,
politician or an individual
you mean to
citizen?
tell me they shouldn't be guaranteed at least 7 minutes, 10 minutes to question you and say, why are you attacking me? Are you aware of my
All I
position?
got to do is pick up the telephone and call.
What? Oh, come on, please. What are we so afraid of? That we won't allow somebody to go one-on-one with us? And
I
that's
don't
the
think
strength
anybody-
of
I
our
don't think
argument.
anybody-
And do you know what you
Everybody
should do?
is afraid
And you
of
know what you
anything.
should
That's what
do?
America's about, a debate
Anybody-
where people run for office. and
Anybody
debate one
worth
another.
their salt, seriously, should be able to, not out of any kind of a mandate or imprimatur by the government or by station policy, but I'll bet you that anybody here worth their salt would say, listen, if I bash you, I'll give you the time. I don't need to be told to do this. I don't need to have this rule enforced on me. I'll do it anyway. But what scares me is the fact that whenever we talk about enforcing things, whenever we talk about having something that permits or that mandates that somebody get their, quote, freedom, I'll tell you, one of the things that you better hope never happens, the reason why you like talk radio, and I'm a fan of this, I'm not talk radio, but I'm a fan of it, is that you want to be able to say, like to your husband or wife at night, did you hear what Bob said? What did you think about, but that Lynn Samuels is crazy. Now, I love Lynn, but Lynn Samuels is certifiably insane. Now, if anybody, but wait a minute, but I love that. If anybody came along with the notion of making things fair, she blasts Giuliani. She blasts everything that drives you crazy. She's like that piece of skin in the back of your mouth that you keep pulling. That cuticle that hurts, but you keep doing it, and you hate her, but you listen to her. If anybody ever did anything to sanitize, level her off, vanilla-ize her, what are you going to have?
Yeah,
Joan
wait,
Hamburg.
wait a
I don't
minute.
need that.
You know,
No, but really, seriously.
you make it sound as if
Joan
somebody...
Hamburg wants equal time now.
Yeah.
You make it sound as if somebody were questioning Lynn as to why she was trashing them, that somehow that would sanitize her. That would give her another opportunity to make her points, maybe embellish her points. I just think, having been on both sides, having been on the other side, in which I was wearing a red beret and being criticized and never had an opportunity to speak back, and heard people making vicious allegations, vicious statements, misinformation, it's just not fair when you let one person or one identity be able to spew rhetoric that cannot be contradicted. That's not what America is about.
But
America is
people-
about let people hear different points of view and judge for themselves.
But if people who are in public life, like politicians, have ample opportunity to voice their views, so why would they have to come on a I mean, if there were a fairness doctrine, then all any of us would be doing is half the time we were on the air, we'd be saying what we want, and the other half, the people, we all trash people.
Imagine this.
They'd be on the air debating
There's a religious program, whether it's Jewish or Christian or whatever, and they say, I believe that sin is wrong, and I believe that homosexuals are wrong, and I believe that da-da-da is wrong. Good. I call up and say, guess what? I'm a lesbian biker who wears Eleanor Roosevelt jackets, and I'm nude right now, and I want equal time because you've just blasted me. Wait a minute, that's ridiculous. Now the next group comes along and says, wait a minute, you blasted me. Pretty soon it's not WABC anymore, and then you, the listener, are going to say, wait a minute, whatever happened to Curtis? Whatever happened? My question to you is, what is the mechanism that you're talking about putting into place by which this fairness, or this, I don't want to keep using that word, but this equality is...
I don't think he's for the fairness doctrine. You're not.
I'm not for a straight time constraint, but there ought to be certain periods in the programming day in which people who feel they've been under attack
imposed
have a
by
chance to
whom?
respond.
I mean, imposed by Phil Boyce?
No,
or by the government?
The individual who obviously first made the criticism, and they go one-on-one with them, because that's the way we settle things in America.
Because you like conflict.
Okay, but what if, for example, let me ask you something. Let's say
You
that...
like the fact that on a microphone you can attack somebody and they have no opportunity
I like
in any way,
that.
shape,
I
or
like
form
it
to
too.
come back.
I like that.
We all like
listen,
that.
Fair.
We're going to take a brief time
Well,
out.
when it was a fair fight, 2-on-2, no weapons.
He doesn't really
May
mean
the
it. If
best
he
man
did, I'd
win.
be mad on him.
Yeah,
But
then you formed a vigilante
let's
group.
let's take a brief time out. Before we do, let me tell you that the gentleman who joined us while we were engaged in some verbal fisticuffs is the man who does Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. until 11 a.m., Dick Oliver. We'll introduce Dick formally. Let him join in.
Ed Koch has disappeared from the battlefront. Rumor has it he's negotiating a peace treaty with David Dinkins and is planning an attack on Mayor Giuliani. While we contemplate that thought, we take a break on WABC.
All right, here we are. We are back in our studio, which is located today in Midtown Manhattan, broadcasting live from the Museum of Television and Radio. You who are here in our studio audience, you can see that Dick Oliver has sat in the chair formerly occupied by Ed Koch. Should we reprise anything that was said by the former mayor, Dick, or have you been brought up to snuff on what he
I'm up
said?
to speed. I'm up to speed. As a matter of fact, the end of what I have to say, I'm going to say that he really should apologize to the mayor of New York. I ran into Rudy Giuliani in an elevator at Channel 5 today, and I said to him, and I quote, and this is the entire conversation, I said, Rudy, forget what Ed Koch says, you did the right thing.
What was the response from the mayor, Dick?
Now, the doors closed, the elevator went up, and he went on TV. Here's what's going on here. Ed Koch hangs out these days with the wrong people. He's not in the right neighborhoods. What Rudy Giuliani did with Arafat and with Castro will never win him a chapter in Profiles in Courage. But he's got a win-win. Win on morality and win on politics. He got a win on morality because Rudy Giuliani is going around and saying the truth, that we have a murderer in our midst. Yasser Arafat. He's got a win on politics because, I can't believe, and I'm sorry he's not here because I would have put the question to him, Ed Koch honestly believes that the people of the city of New York, and he said the Jewish population of the city of New York, believes that Rudy did the wrong thing. I think he's aces off. And this is one of the best politicians I have ever met in years and years and years. I think the panel will agree. Ed Koch is a politician. Now, what we have with Yasser Arafat is Rudy Giuliani has got it made. We've got a murderer here. We had a social event. We had an event which he was in effect the host, because he got to invite a murderer to the party. No, not at all. So I would just like to say that the reason I feel, and then Koch was calling for an apology from Rudy Giuliani today. Rudy Giuliani should maintain his ground. The apology should come from Ed Koch. Twice today on WABC, my favorite radio station, Koch called the sitting mayor of New York a horse's ass.
Oh.
Twice.
Uh-huh.
True?
Un culo de caballo.
Now that's
All right.
wrong, and the former mayor should apologize to the current mayor.
And by the way,
I'm no toady for the current mayor, by the way. We have no love lost. We disagree on this and that, but Ed Koch is dead wrong.
he's the same Ed Koch who keeps referring to me as vulgar. He's vulgar.
With Bob Grant.
And let's be heard, round 3 of our get-together. Today it's really the Lionel, Lynn, Jay, Curtis,
what a
Bob
day.
show, Dick show. Dick is here, Dick Oliver, who joined us during the last hour and had some very, I think, very cogent things to say about a man who never lets us forget that he was the mayor of the city of New York. So anyway.
See, that's why Curtis thinks you need the fairness doctrine. You'd have to let Ed come back now.
I
Bob,
don't think Curtis really. Where is he? No, he's not here. But I don't think Curtis really
Nobody
understands
leaves.
what he's saying.
Bob, if I could, there's a fellow who would like to ask a question. He's been so patient as to standing here for so long. Ask away, sir.
First of all, I have to send an annual event. Secondly, I wish...
Your question or the...
No. Really,
Fair enough.
This is great. This is only in New York. I think also that the...
Would you get into the microphone,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
sir?
If you could have the same relaxed feeling in the air, I know that's possible, because I know you're limited by time. It possibly might serve everyone better, because sometimes, and I've spoken to all of you at different times. My name is Henry from Riverdale, and I've, had differences. Sometimes yes, sometimes
Have
no.
that man taken away.
Yeah. Anyway, as a teacher in the New York City public school system, now retired, although I do some per diem subbing.
You know, you never know we had time limitations by the introduction of the question.
Touche.
And I was in the 20s. I played the banjo.
And then came the
With a
30s.
small group.
Okay. We both, in a sense, all of you and myself, are in the field of communication, except I do it at a different level. And I think that education is the only way we're going to solve any of the problems between the races, number one, or anything else. And I think there should be more of a working relationship between the media and the public school systems that might help, as well as changing the curriculum. It has to do with integrating all the material so that it makes sense. And now we should teach logic as well as reading and writing, because if you can't think, you can't do anything else. And that's why when they talked about needing leaders, who needs a leader? The only leaders should be your parents as your own role models, a term I hate, and then your own brain, which you're supposed to have. And if we could develop those skills at that level, maybe we could begin to have
Jay
a
Diamond
dialogue.
disagrees with you. What? Jay, you're shaking your head feverishly.
Do you think the show would be like the
marveling
past?
at your own reaction to this gentleman.
You did this. Do you think the show would be like the last 3-4 minutes?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, I think the people are more relaxed here. They don't feel under as much
You got to
pressure.
remember, it's because we have a nice live audience
I understand
here.
that.
We're relating to the live audience instead of those gavones who
I know,
call.
I know.
And him and how are you, Bob?
I know.
Like
I understand.
Bob, how are you?
Can I add something about the Ed Koch thing? Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks
Lionel.
a lot.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Don't
By the way, for
violate the
transcripts of that
once-a-week rule,
question,
pal.
send 25 cents in coin to Marco Press. But one time, Ed Koch and I were on this New York Press Forum or whatever it was. I don't know what it was. It was a Saturday morning, and the question was, does talk radio affect or change your opinion? Not does it influence you, but does it, in essence, control politics? Does it control public opinion? And Ed Koch had said that he believed, to a certain extent, his opinion really weighed heavily. No, I'm not trying to paraphrase him negatively, but it's true. But he believed that talk radio, and my theory is that it doesn't. That you very rarely have had an opinion changed. Look at the issue with the mayor. Most of you people, I think, are as intelligent and as rational as anybody else. One could argue, well, you're a bad sample because you like our station, and maybe that means you're more right-wing than left. I don't believe that. But isn't it funny how almost unanimously this crowd, and I agree, that Mayor Giuliani was correct. So therefore, Ed's opinion had no effect on you. And isn't it also interesting that if you really want to find out what people are thinking, don't listen to talk show hosts, listen to talk show listeners or talk show audiences. So in essence, it's unique. It's a paradox. We really don't change your mind, but then again, sometimes you're the best barometer of what everybody thinks. That makes any sense.
No, it does, and you're right. But here's something that's interesting, and I know it because it's my own... Stop it! My own emotional frailty. Now, sometimes I think I've got a case. I'm a little bug. Somebody has wronged me. And I'll tell it to somebody who's
You
really...
feel once in a while that somebody has wronged you?
Cut that out!
Occasionally?
No, but here's the thing. But I remember I used to go to my best friend, my grandmother, with whom I was closest, and there was nobody more loyal to me in my life. And I would whine to her or make lamentations to her, and she'd say, all right, look away from it, forget it, you're making too much out of it. Stop being ridiculous. All right, because she loved me. But then, the worst thing is, now she's not around anymore, so I tell somebody my grievance, and they say, you know something, you're right. And I say, I am? Oh, I'll get him. So sometimes somebody who supports you in your gravamen, in your grievance, in your anger, is not doing you a favor. What I mean is, I don't think talk radio changes any opinions, but it might highlight them and empower them and make them bigger than they might be.
Okay.
That's Lynn Samuels, in case you didn't know.
I didn't say just me. We have a very raucous crowd at this end. You're very sedate over there.
Yes, Lionel?
This fellow seems to have a question, Bob. Either that or he's trying to let his pants dry out.
All right. Yes, sir?
So good on the last one. Let's try this one, yeah.
Hi, this is Rich from
All right, would you put his microphone on? Anybody? Anybody. Put his microphone on, please.
Testing. Is this thing on? Can you hear me back
testing.
there?
Oh, you're a pro.
Hi, my name's Rich from Easton, PA, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank WABC for bringing a true voice of reason and healing to the New York area, even if it was brief. That would be Dennis Prager, of course. I enjoyed 6 months on the air very much.
You never know what somebody's going to come up with. You never know. You never know. Who the hell needed that? Yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Bob. Now I have a comment to make. Given that attorney Johnny Cockroach said that give me one black on the jury and I will acquit O.J. Simpson, and given the overwhelming amount of evidence, motive, and behavior exhibited during the trial, it seems that his prophecy came to be true. Does this, I'm wondering, I believe it to be, but I'm wondering how you feel, if this spells the end for the American jury system, whereby we have a whole panel of 12 people, none of them who regularly read the newspaper, deciding the fate of someone who is obviously a murderous slime bucket and who still brings my bile to my throat when I think about it, and how...
Boy, I'd want you on a jury.
How he's being accepted back into society. I guess especially for Lionel, is this the end of the jury system? Do we need to have an IQ test, perhaps, or maybe a tribunal of judges like they have in Europe to bring some semblance of reality back into our court system?
When are you going back to Easton?
How about a kangaroo court?
It's a long trip. You ought to start leaving now. Go ahead, Lionel.
This isn't the end of the American jurisprudence. This has happened before. Look at Lemrick Nelson. Look at Lorena Bobbitt. Look at... Yes, I mean, the idea is that when you give people the chance to sit in judgment, and the jury system makes sense to me, is the idea of taking people like you as a buffer between the sovereign and the people. And sometimes it works. For the most part, it works.
Well, what about this maniacal thing? No, stop! What about this maniacal thing? And you're a lawyer, so therefore we can all pick on you. What about this maniacal thing? And I think our Easton PA friend brought it up, of having a jury of nincompoops on there. Have you ever read anything about this case? Oh, no.
Right.
Oh, no.
Right.
You're either lying or you're a moron.
Dick.
What about that?
Dick, I just want to ask you a question. There are odd vagaries to the system now. What is the acquittal rate for felony indictments in the Bronx? Doesn't it approach 50%?
Oh, yeah. It's getting crazy. Jurors are nullifying...
the Wall Street Journal piece.
So, right. So that's not unique to the Simpson case. This is something that's a factor. I mean, in the Bronx, it's institutionalized.
Case,
Half
the
of the
whole nation saw how obvious it was that the defendant was guilty.
No, the problem with the Simpson case was that people who watched it on television for an hour a day or 2 hours here and there, everybody in America thought they were the jury. The jury were the only people that saw everything that they were supposed to see. We saw things that they didn't see.
I can't believe that you really. I cannot believe. I do not believe that you really believe that.
This is the best
You
part.
don't believe that.
This is
if you
the
do, then you belong in Creedmoor.
This is the interesting point. People have
LYNN,
talked
the
about
man
this,
is
and
a
I've heard this.
savage killer. Face
I've
reality.
heard, and OJ too.
Thank you very
the
much.
Jury.
But let me tell you,
I don't know.
you know what's interesting about
That's the only thing you could possibly say. I don't know.
By the
because
way,
you
don't
know.
Bob, this has happened before. Lynn was watching Nuremberg tapes years ago and said, you know, I wasn't there. I don't know. This during,
Back to lynchings. You know?
maybe he had a uniform. I mean, he was there. I believe they used the German word, the G word. You know, but this is what's interesting about this. People have talked about natural justice, natural law. I don't know what that means. I have no idea. But isn't it funny that everybody knows, everybody, with the exception of somebody that I really love, much like that sick relative where you say, bless her heart, she means well. But for the most part, everybody knows that this man killed these two people. And isn't it funny? He expected to be carried out on the shoulders of everybody. He expected to be somehow purged. He expected to be embraced by the white community, by everybody, which is really where he wants to be. He doesn't want to be in the black community. He wants to hang around with Kardashian and play golf and that sort of thing. So what happened was people are turning their back on him. There is, in essence, a form of natural justice, and he can't believe it. And what you're seeing right now is a person who is absolutely without any semblance of reality. He's delusional, and something is going to happen.
That's because he can't get his Hooters VIP card back.
I predicted who hit Nancy Kerrigan by accident, but I have a feeling that Fred Goldman is laying the perfect groundwork for a great insanity defense. Watch Goldman, though. Think about this. If for some reason all of a sudden OJ's on the ninth hole and you hear a crack of a rifle and he falls and there's Fred Goldman saying, this is for my son Ron,
No.
I'd like to see what would happen. No, of course it's not going to happen. But wouldn't it be funny if that same form of justice, where we kind of looked the other way, were reintroduced? I don't think there's a jury in this country that would convict them. Do you?
I certainly wouldn't.
I would use the nullification prerogative and do it. But please, though, O.J. Simpson is an aberration. Don't lose faith in this.
Is he an aberration?
Not because of that acquittal rate in the Bronx.
I think about the fact that there is a second trial of Eric and Lyle Menendez going on right now. And that still boggles my mind that there was a hung jury, that they couldn't convict them. What about that?
Whenever you allow human beings to make up their mind and to have hung juries, whenever the rule says it has to be unanimous, and somebody on the jury doesn't think it's one way and then there's a split in votes, you're going to get a hung jury. Lorena Bobbitt, to this day, I think was the most amazing one. This poor guy, drunk or whatever it is, he threw up in her shoes, so while he's asleep, she ablates his manhood. Doesn't leave, and she violated every rule of common law.
Every
retreat.
There
has to be a retreat rule. The retreat says you have to leave before you can take deadly force. Everything. But yet, because we hated him so much, we said to this woman, that's okay, you're crazy. And that one kind of went by. Nobody really paid attention. The Rodney King verdict. As much as people don't want to talk about it, I kind of thought that was an aberration too, except that they charged the police officers with the wrong offenses. So what I'm saying is, if you really look at this thing, at the system, and you look at the Bronx or whatever it is, you're going to find cases that make no sense. But by and large, if you go to courthouse all over the country, you'll see people, for the most part, pleading guilty, violations.
Why do we have a
probation.
2% conviction rate? Now, only
trials.
I interviewed a guest the other day, an authority on the subject. He said we are now down to 2% people who commit crimes of every category of felony. 2% now are convicted.
Let me try to give you good news. The vast majority of all cases, there is a plea of guilty, no contest. It's disposed of. First of all, those cases
To a
which go
reduced charge.
or to the charge that makes sense, one way or another. Most cases are disposed of. Now, those cases that go to trial normally go to trial for a good reason. there's something wrong with the case. Defense attorneys are rather loath to submit their clients to a jury trial just because they want to try a few cases. Normally there's a defensible issue perhaps. So that may be 10%. So maybe it's 2% of the 10%. I'm not trying to apologize for the system. I'm saying it may not be as bad as we think.
But now that could all change given the Simpson trial. In other words, attorneys, and I read this in the paper, criminal defense attorneys will be more likely to go to trial now than cop.
I guarantee you, any case where the name Fung appears on a witness list, they're going to go to trial.
All right, we're going to continue right here on our program. I'm not going to call it the Bob Grant Show today. It's the, what should we call it, Jay?
War of the hosts.
Okay, the War of the Talk Show hosts in just a moment.
As Curtis staggers to his corner, bloody but unbowed, we'll take a break from the action on WABC.
Dick, I want to ask, what, Lynn, you wanted to say? Okay.
No, the poor man's been standing there trying to ask a question so we can mock him.
All right, sir, your first name and where you're from.
I'll tell you more than my first name, and I'll tell you where I'm from. And I don't think anybody will mock me.
Good.
My name is Harris L. Present. I took some time off from my office today because I thought this was a rather unusual event to have all of these talk show hosts on that are on at different times of the day together and to talk about some different subjects, recognizing that WABC is the leading talk radio station in the country. I'm sorry that Mr. Ed Koch, whom I know well for many years, has left, and that Curtis is out signing autographs, and the same with Lionel. So I will address the people who are left here. We, about 5 years ago, reorganized our city government by getting rid of the Board of Estimate and giving our city council a great deal of power. And some of the power it has is to hold investigations, to subpoena witnesses, and do things of the sort. And I bring that up because it was mentioned here earlier by Curtis SLIWA in connection with himself and Ed Koch, the fact of that pogrom which took place in Crown Heights. I had letters published in the New York Times. I was on Barry Farber's program on another station then, a number of times on Barry Gray, trying to use the powers that the city council has to do an investigation of the worst experience that the Jewish people have had in the United States since the founding of our republic. And I'm referring to a community.
Give us the questions that you want answered. And I think, wait a minute. You're asking questions about Crown Heights. I believe that most of the questions about Crown Heights have been answered. What is the question you would like to see answered?
The question I would like to see answered is why.
Why?
Just a second. Please don't interrupt me. Why, when there was a resolution introduced to examine the subject of Crown Heights, which would have permitted everybody from the mayor down to be investigated by subpoena, that we could not even get it voted on in the city of New York? Why? Tell me why.
What is the question? The question is, what do you want to know about Crown Heights?
No, I don't want to know.
You want a commission?
Why the city council?
A commission to raise more questions about Crown Heights?
No, not at all. The question is why our city government, with its power contemporaneous to this event, took no action to investigate this event.
The answer is because we had a pusillanimous mayor, to use a favorite word of Bob Grant and Jay Diamond, because we had a mayor that was hiding under a rock, because we had out-of-town Brown out of town, because we had Kelly, the first deputy commissioner, who was ducking the thing. They were afraid to go in there. Do you really need a lot of answers? I've got a lot of them
I
for you.
need the key answer.
What's
and
the-
the key
what's the
answer
key
is
question?
this. If I were a member of the council, and I got up to the council...
But, Mr. President,
Yes,
excuse
go
me,
ahead.
there was a state investigation. The Girgenti Commission
State
issued a comprehensive
investigation had
report.
no subpoena power.
No, but I understand what you're saying.
Go
But
ahead.
there is a court case that I believe is still being litigated.
Right.
Franklin Snitow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right. So
You know why it became necessary? Because our council
Well, no, I agree
did
with you.
not do what it was supposed to do.
I agree with you, and I think there's a reason for that.
That's the point.
All right, but I think there's a reason for that. And Dick, tell me what you think. In addition to the mayor
Yeah.
being craven with respect to that, most of the city councilmen are of the mayor's party, and most of them are reluctant to take him on anyway. I mean, at the time, if there had been 30 councilmen who were Republicans, then don't you think there would have been more
See,
of a political incentive to investigate?
I don't believe there's anything out there we don't know. I don't care if you've got subpoena power. We've got a federal case going, which is in effect the criminal case because
Yeah.
of that outrage of the acquittal of Lemrick Nelson. You've got that going, the federal case. You've got several civil cases going. What is the question that you need answered?
The question I need answered.
Why did some
Just when you please
city council
listen if you
member
want a
vote
question
no?
answered. We have a council now.
Forget about it.
Just a second, I don't forget about
Well,
it.
please
They're
do.
still here. Since they did not take the proper action
Well, then get
in
rid-
that case,
all right, but it's a
then
one-
why?
Harris, it's still
Yeah.
a one-party city council. My advice to you is to elect 35 to 40 Republicans, and then you'll see that investigation.
It was that party that introduced the resolution. A member of that party that introduced the resolution.
Aren't you allowed to
11
say Republican?
sponsors of that resolution did.
All right.
And I see I am wasting my time, so good day, gentlemen. and
I
ladies.
thank you very much, sir. I thank you. And we're glad to know that you get invited to appear on some radio programs now and then. No wonder their ratings went down. All right. I mean, you know, hey, you imagine how long he would have lasted if he called the Bob Grant show between, what am I on? Oh, I'm on at this time, right. I mean, you know, these. Well, anyway, he had a interesting point. What was his point? I think Dick Oliver, I want to say that I think you responded to him absolutely correct. I like that.
I learned it from the master.
All right. Do we have anybody else who wants to address the microphone?
What I'm about to say is, I think, going to be very unpopular with this audience. But, Bob Grant, you said something. Why do we take you so seriously? Because you're a voice that goes out to the masses, so to speak. And what I think you say is very dangerous. I think you're full of hate.
Oh,
I think you are full of hate. I told you. Well, let me talk. No.
This is America. He has his right
This is America. This is
to
America.
talk as
People are
anybody else.
so angry
They have their
about
right to
O.J.
express their
Simpson.
contempt
They go
for him.
around toting the American flag, saying good for the jury system, good for the jury system. But the fact of the matter is, with that case, is that sometimes it doesn't work, and that's the most perfect system we can have. But that's the way it is. That's the way it is. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. I'm not saying I like it, but that's the way it is.
You don't make any sense.
I make plenty of sense.
With Jay using his machine gun wit, other warriors are ducking. While they try to think of a comeback, we'll take this break on WABC.
Seriously, do you think that even unconsciously, maybe he yearns for that spotlight?
Oh,
He
I know
wants
he
to
does.
be back.
I know he does, but he yearns for that power he had. Why would you throw a press conference? He's got.
That's what I said.
He's on the internet. He's on ABC.
Right.
He's on TV. He's
Writes
doing
a column.
commercials. He's writing movie things.
It
he's
was the
writing books.
stridency of his denunciation. He could have said on the air, he could have said, well, I think it's really not in the best interest of the city or the world community. If it were me, I would have let him in. But he's going a step further and saying, oh, no, this is a dreadful mistake. Why, it's the degree of his harshness. Of
Or
his
the mayor
criticism.
and I disagree. I would have handled it this
Right.
way. He chose to handle it this way. But, call him a horse's ass
It
on the
gave
radio.
him an opportunity to sit down with David Dinkins. Probably the first time Koch and Dinkins ever agreed
Sure,
about
they enjoyed it,
anything.
each of
All right, we have a distinguished gentleman who looks as though he might be a descendant of Albert Einstein standing there. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Bob. My name is Mordecai. I'd like to make a comment. In these days of political hacks which abound, one may even be on your radio station, I'd like to say God bless Rudy Giuliani for his courageous stance. He's going to take a lot of flack from it. And I believe he was appearing with David Dinkins, who I believed, if he was reelected, the streets leaving New York would have looked like the highways of Tokyo when Godzilla appeared in Tokyo Bay. So I'd just like to say God bless Rudy Giuliani. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought of the difference between David and Rudy driving in today. I said, hey, the squeegee guys are gone. Remember, it wasn't too long ago that the squeegee guys owned the city, right, Curtis?
That's right. And in fact, thank God for WABC, because Rudy Giuliani to this day will always give us thumbs up, because he knows this station was so important in giving him that edge. I mean, except for Lynn Samuels, the entire station was in solidarity to make him the mayor, and hasn't he paid us back dividends tenfold?
Yeah, that subway fare going up, I'm really looking forward to that.
Now, wait a minute, Bob. Those weren't squeegee men worthy of derision. They were entrepreneurs.
Wait a minute. The squeegee men are gone, Curtis.
They are.
Oh, yeah. But the cup people are out there. You don't even get your window cleaned anymore. They just stand in front of your car.
Oh, we'll just run them over. They're just the undeserving poor. They're not really human. They don't count like we do.
Lynn, you don't think there are undeserving poor?
No.
You think all poor are deserving
Yes.
of your money?
Yes.
Everybody?
Yes.
What if somebody says, well, tough, I'm not going to do anything, I'm able-bodied, it's too bad, take care of me.
Well, then there's obviously something mentally wrong with them, and they need to be taken care of.
All right, but all right, wait a minute. But still, they're not deserving. They may be sick, but they're not particularly
Let them
deserving.
die in the streets.
Now, wait a minute.
What do you do with them?
Did you think Billy Boggs should have been allowed to continue what she was doing over there? You do?
Yes.
Yeah, just a moment ago you said if they were mentally ill, they should be taken care of. She was certifiably
She wanted
mentally
to
ill.
stay out there. It's a free country. You
Lynn,
can't just
free
take
country,
people.
that means you can
The
impede
first thing
everybody
is-
else?
No, the first thing is you say, oh, she's homeless, she's crazy, lock her up. And the next thing you say is, well, here's Lynn Samuels. She thinks that you shouldn't do this. That's not acceptable. Lock her up.
You know, if we
then
gave
they
you
say
electric
what you
shock-
think is acceptable, then lock you up. It's the same thing. Who quoted
Lynn,
it? You know,
Lynn.
first they came for the and nobody
please.
said anything.
Please.
Excuse me, I want to talk to Lynn. Let's say you're right, that it's a sign of neurosis that a person doesn't want to take care of themselves, and I think that I would concede that. But don't you think that part of the therapy would be advising them that they have to be, through behavior therapy, start to work and get into the...
Oh, please.
We'll
you know,
get-
you need
we'll-
to take
hold it.
care of poor and
Please,
sick
please,
people.
we must-
No, it's true. I agree with you.
Stop.
But there's more money to take care of deserving people if you don't waste it
And who's
on,
the
hey, wait a minute,
God
on
who
malingerers.
decides?
Let us
Jay
get- we take
Diamond?
this brief time out, and then we'll get back to this, the Bickersons.
As Ed Koch struts around the ring with his fist clenched in the air, we'll take a break for these messages on WABC.
Now, I have a chart back here as well. Just turn around, son. Just turn around. You see that chart? That says 95,000 signatures. That say I'm going to be on the ballot California. I've got 9 months to get on the other ballots. I'm going to get on 50 states. And then what are you going to say about it? Because I'm going to help elect the man you love, Slick Willie.
Well, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. Yeah, I'm sure that's your intention. But why? But why?
You sound like that guy on the West Coast. I just came out of his studio, Michael Jack. He says that. But why?
But why?
Why does a guy who's been here 40 years sound like Colonel Blimp?
Well,
Nobody
what
knows
about
what
you?
I'm talking about. People in the business
Now,
know.
listen. Why don't you cut it out? Why, you have $2.3 billion. What do you need with all this?
That's $0.7 billion less than I had 4 years ago, and I don't like to throw good money after bad, so this time I'm going to do it right. My daughter's married. She's pregnant. I don't have to worry about marrying her off again. I don't have to worry about anybody interrupting the wedding, and I don't have to worry about any wise guy like you telling me that I don't know what I'm doing or I shouldn't do it. I've got 95,000 signatures. You look at the chart, it's right there. In fact, since we're talking, I got another 6,000 signatures.
You know,
I'm on your block.
No, you know what
your neighbors are signing up for me.
You know what your problem is? You're our problem, but I'll tell you another problem that
You're one of the few people in the world who I could eat cherries off of his head, so be careful.
Listen, you think this is the Larry King show, where everybody's going to kiss your tush and say, well, great to have you, Ross, great to have you. We don't feel that way.
You're right about Larry King, but you got the wrong side of my anatomy. He don't work on the back, he works on the
I don't know. Does anybody want to... After that, I think I'm inclined to withdraw, but I'm surprised that you popped in here. Are you that craven? By the way, you can't get on this ballot. It's going to be very tough to get on the ballot in New York.
That's if I want to run as a Republican, but I don't have to get on any ballot. I can get on the ballot just by buying my way in, the way I get in everywhere else. Let me tell you about that airport I built.
For your son?
For my son. That's a duty-free zone. You know how good that is for the country? It's not only people are crying, that's good for you, it's good for you, it's good for you, but all those duty-free goods and all that money gets spent right here in that airport that I built with my money for this country. And if I'm elected, I can build an airport like that in everybody's backyard.
Well, now, wait a minute. Hey, he says if I'm elected. This is interesting. You've been going around maintaining, and I saw you with Bryant Gamble the other day. You said the other day that you weren't really interested in running. You just wanted to see that there was a third party out.
No, I didn't say that. I said I wouldn't guarantee that I wouldn't run, but if things come out right, things work out the way I think they'll work out, I might run. I never said I wouldn't run. Why would I not run? I'm an American citizen. There's 268 million American citizens. Last time I counted, I should know I paid for the count. I did my own private count because a lot of people won't answer the door for the census takers. Then they complain that they're underrepresented in Congress, so we got to pay for an investigation to add certain people to the census. Simple truth is, there are 268 American citizens. If I give each one $4 or $5, they'll show up.
You know, if they had the Doyle-Short Act in effect in the state of Texas, you would have to undergo 48 hours of intense psychiatric investigation. And I think if they did that, you would be confined to the mental hospital in Laredo.
Well, I don't know anything about that Doyle-Sharp Act, but I do know about the Glass-Steagall Act, and I want to see that repealed so banks can sell insurance. Because if there's one thing I believe in, it's a salesman. I could sell anything. I could sell you. In fact, the only thing I can't do, unfortunately, yet, but I'm going to figure out how, is to buy you.
Tomorrow, I will be at the Colonnade Diner at 10:30 in the morning with not the Spot-Sheen T-shirts, the sick out there and getting sicker T-shirts. I look forward to so many of my friends in Staten Island tomorrow on Highland Boulevard, the Colonnade Diner. And, of course, tomorrow we'll be right back at 3 o'clock for another edition of the regular Bob Grant Show. Our thanks to Phil Boyce, Bob Busey, Mike Kachopoli.
#1 talk station.
Until tomorrow, your influence costs music. Right ahead.
Absolutely nothing. Talk Radio 77 WABC presents The War of the Talk Show Hosts, our celebration of radio's 75th anniversary. Now, here's the General, the King of Talk Radio, Mr. Bob Grant. Listen to me.
Let's be heard. Hello, everyone. And let's be heard. I'll say it again. Hello, everyone. Not only to those of you here in our studio, but to those of you listening on your radio, wherever you may be in WABC country, the tri-state area. If you're calling from Connecticut, of course, it's 203-862-WABC from New Jersey, 201-489 WABC from New York, 212-563 WABC, and a program dedicated today to I don't know what. I'm not quite sure. All week long, you've been subjected to the propaganda with the ominous tones of Johnny Donovan. Let the battle begin, the war of the talk show hosts. And every one of my colleagues here said, what the hell are they talking about? What war? I don't know. All I do know is whenever this bunch gets together, you never really know what's going to happen. And I want to introduce the people who are seated alongside of me officially. On my far left is Lionel. Let's hear it for Lionel.
Bob, that's only a direction. Far left, you didn't mean.
I mean only in terms of direction, of course. On my
This is the far
immediate left, ladies and gentlemen, the bag lady of WABC, Lynn Samuels. And the multi-voiced gentleman on my right, that handsome young debonair fellow, is really Jay Diamond. And, of course, who could mistake a person who insists on wearing that silly, I don't know what the heck it is, a Tim, and the red jacket. Of course, you know he's the one and only. He has become a New York landmark. It is Curtis SLIWA. And the gentleman standing over there by the doorway is the program director of WABC, and if you have any complaints about anything, he's the guy to write to, Phil Boyce. I guess that takes care of all the immediate introductions here. All right, I'm going to open things up. I know that these people are not going to be reticent. You put them in front of a microphone, and they're off to the races nonstop. I'm looking forward to today because, in a way, it's like a day off for me. I don't really have to do the program. I just sit back and listen to them have at each other. You know, I don't know whether they're going to have at each other or not. Does anybody want to start things off?
Oh, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. I need permission from Phil. I don't even have permission to talk to Lynn.
You don't have permission to talk to Lynn?
Oh, do I?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. Well, why didn't you say so?
Those two things are mutually exclusive, probably.
Now, if you notice, ladies and gentlemen, it's not by accident that I'm sitting between Lynn and Jay. Not by accident. I've been importuned all week to
It's not as bad as sorry to interrupt you, but at your roast, I sat between Lynn and Al D'Amato. You should have tried that one.
That's right, but didn't she kiss Al D'Amato, or did he kiss
Oh,
her?
no, he kissed me.
No, you remember it incorrectly. You both kissed me. You on the left and he on the right.
If I recall correctly, Lynn kissed Al on the lips and Jay kissed him on the... Well, anyway, that's it.
You would know. That's what you think about.
Ladies and
that
gentlemen,
particular image is dear to your mind.
A little later, we're going to be joined by Ed Koch. I believe he'll be coming in at 4:30.
Along with the mayor, I understand, Bob.
Yes. Okay. May I make mention, Bob, that, in advance of the arrival of the former mayor, Ed Koch, who still thinks he's the mayor, he says he is a liberal with sanity. Well, I happen to feel that he's proven he truly is a liberal with his attacks on Giuliani today. And in fact, remember, years ago he went to Israel and some of Arafat's boys hit him with a rock in his head. I think it's knocked the sanity right out of his voice because he's really gone Meshuggah today.
This has indeed been an incredible week. I was thinking driving here just about an hour, 10 minutes ago. It's a good thing we didn't have this broadcast yesterday or the day before because we had his slickness in town tying up traffic and Boris Yeltsin here and everybody was here. And Lionel, you leave so early in the morning, I guess you were able to miss all the traffic jams, right?
Yes, but I felt it later on. Which is a personal statement, which has nothing to do with this. Anyway.
I want to commend you, Lionel. This is the first chance I've had to talk. I want to commend you for your nonstop verbal assault on the butcher of Havana, Fidel Castro.
Absolutely.
Now, Lynn, you moaned when I said that. You mean to say you like Fidel?
What about Suharto in Indonesia, who invaded East Timor 20 years ago and has been killing people? He was everywhere. Why pick out one person?
All right. Want to tell her why, Lionel?
Yeah, nobody can explain to me why there's only one bad person.
This was Ed Koch's. Nobody said there was only one bad person.
Well,
we all have our
favorites. Why didn't they not let all these other people come?
He's my favorite bad person.
Oh, all right. Oh, okay.
Next to you, Lynn.
Suharto of Indonesia is my favorite bad person.
This is what Ed Koch was railing about today. His idea was, his whole problem with the mayor was not so much that they asked Yasser Arafat to leave. By the way, the only man ever thrown out of Alice Tully Hall. You think about it, during the Nutcracker Suite. All right, Towelhead, get out of here. But the interesting point was that he said, well, what about the other countries? So that's your argument, too. So I say, you're right. Let's take all of these individuals and fling something that sticks on them and call them what they are. They're butchers. And he is the worst. Who's
the worst? It's hard to tell.
Fidel Castro.
Oh, he
has
is
no
not.
Fear.
Indonesia's the worst.
What do you know about Indonesia? What the hell do you know about Indonesia?
More than you do.
I know more about Cuba than you know Indonesia.
East Timor.
East Timor. Timor. I love you, Timor. She's doing Annie over here.
Well, you've got to remember, Lionel, since Fidel is a communist, Lynn finds it tough to dislike him.
It's the beard.
There are plenty of worse people than Castro.
Why is it anybody on the left you defend?
I don't defend China.
Well, if you notice,
but wait a second.
your friend Bill Clinton rolled out the red carpet. Most favored trade nation
Because
status. He
they all,
wined
most
and
favorite
dined.
trade nation status, they all have done that.
Yeah, but
George
China
Bush
is as
did
guilty
that.
as any country has been in the past few decades
But
of
Bush
butchery.
did that too.
I understand, but Lionel is making a good point. Here it is, Fidel Castro, 90 miles off our shore. China's so distant away. That's why it's so easy for Bill Clinton to make nice to China, because he doesn't have to
But
deal with
they
them as
all
potential
do. It has
voters.
to do with money and the size of the population. If Cuba, believe me, had anything we really wanted other than Russia's cigars, then we'd be making nice to
Russia's
Castro
cigars?
too.
Well, you're right. I think you're right, but that's, what do they call that, real politics?
Yes.
Real politics.
But
right.
so I don't think you're wrong, but I think it makes sense. China has 1.3 billion
That's right.
people.
They can buy a lot of stuff and make
And
a
if they're
lot of
belligerent,
stuff.
they can make us more trouble than Cuba. I tell you the truth. I have no love for Fidel Castro, and I was offended that he was accorded that great jubilee at the Abyssinian Baptist Church. I think that was more a political message that the people up there were trying to send to the rest of the country and perhaps the rest of the world. But I believe that Fidel Castro is a historical and cultural anachronism, and he's going to go away by himself in the next couple of years. So I think there are more pressing things.
And you're the umpteenth person, including presidents, to say that. He's like a cancer that keeps growing back. You keep saying, that's it, he's leaving, he's leaving.
That's why
It's like
everybody
the thing-
hates him so much. Here he
He
is.
doesn't
the
have a
head-
patron now. He doesn't have a big, rich patron. He doesn't have the Soviet Union bankrolling.
So he has Charlie Rangel and a bunch of idiots out there.
That's right.
Who are suggesting...
Oh, wait. But you had Charlie Rangel on 2 mornings in a row, and you were his big pal.
Oh, no,
So
I
now
did. I
you
told
denounce
him.
Charlie
In fact,
Rangel,
I
but
told
when
him.
you speak to Charlie
In fact,
Rangel,
I
it
told
was
Charlie
different.
Rangel the other day, I said, there have been many things that you've said that I really agreed with. I said, but I can't believe this one. I said, what about the apartheid? What about the embargo for South Africa? That was okay. And Haiti, that was okay.
Charlie Rangel
Why
was
not
the guy. Charlie Rangel was the guy who threatened the Jewish community in New York that what's going to happen if Dinkins is reelected.
That's right.
He'll blame remember, if he isn't reelected, he'll blame the Jews.
Let me interrupt here for just a moment. We're going to take a brief time out. Before we take that time out, Lionel, I want you to keep Rangel on all the time. Keep him talking, because he's developed what they call vocal nodes, and those nodes will only get worse. So
Hopefully
keep
you'll
him
do for
talking.
Rangel what you did for Kunstler.
All right, this portion is brought to you by Amoco Gasoline. All right, well, here we are. Seems strange to be with my colleagues and not be broadcasting from the world-famed Rio Diner. But anyway, remember the last time we were there? Was it the last time that you had George Steinbrenner thinking you were Phil Rizzuto?
Easy, he might fire me.
You mean Frank Rizzuto?
Was Frank an
Rizzuto,
inside
that's
joke?
what he thought he was?
Okay. Now, where were we before you interrupted, Lynn?
I have no idea.
All right, we have a gentleman who wants to ask a question.
Let
He
him
has
ask a question, then we'll decide if he's a gentleman.
All right, just give your first name and tell us where you're from, sir.
Okay, Eddie from Brooklyn. I've been interested in your program, particularly the last few days, on a lot of the stuff on Cuba, Lionel. And I'm particularly interested because I went there this summer. I traveled there. And basically, I'm not particularly pro-Castro in any way, but I went there because I was totally fascinated. After all these years, I've never been to a communist country, and here we have one that's 90 miles south. And I went up to Toronto and went to Cuba. It's quite.
You can always go to San Francisco.
Right. But in any case, one part, you talked a lot about the embargo the last few days. And one component, I really want to talk about one component of the embargo, which is what I did, travel there. And is it possible, in your opinion, that particular component, in light of the fact that when I went there, to the extent that it was possible, I talked fairly openly to people. Maybe I was even taking a risk to do so. I did.
You were very sure.
I was
you were very
perhaps
open.
taking a risk, and not within
And I
reason.
bet you
Yes,
got a lot
had to
of-
talk wisdom. Is it possible that the expansion of that, and people going there, and talking, and bringing in newspapers, and I left my radio headphones there, which you can hear my radio out of Miami perfectly. I gave it to someone as a gift. Is it possible that would do more to bring down, just that component of the embargo, would do more to bring down Castro than not allowing people to travel there? Don't forget, I'm not talking about trade now. I'm only talking about travel.
I'm sure trade has its benefits, but I think they're too minimal. No, I believe in the complete isolation, dry them out completely. So I wouldn't go. I mean, I beg to differ as far as you think you learned anything, because you're going to be treated.
I don't
you're
think
gonna
anyone learns anything.
You're going to be treated with the greatest of courtesy. You're not going to see anything really that's untoward. But the old argument is that if we let people see what truth is and what democracy is all about, maybe that will somehow, spur the Cubans on to revolt? Have Castro have a change of heart? Say, they do deserve Hogan's Heroes or
first of all,
whipped cream or whatever. I think I'm going to change my mind.
No.
I don't believe that's true.
I'm not so sure it's not true. I mean, there seems to be, first of all, the
I
American...
think that's very naive, Eddie. I think you're incredibly naive, I must tell you. I was in the Soviet Union in September of 1978.
Yeah.
The Soviet Union finally collapsed in 1990. That's the official date of the collapse of the Soviet Union, or the beginning of the collapse. Am I to conclude that because a waiter at a hotel in then Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, asked if he could have my Newsweek magazine, that's why the Soviet Union...
No, it takes a lot more than that, obviously. I'm not saying that in and of itself is the answer.
I understand what you're driving at.
Something to it.
No, I understand what you're driving, but you don't know what happens after you leave. You don't know what happens.
It's certainly possible some of the people I talked to were harassed.
I do know that I have talked to many Cuban Americans or people who are still holding their Cuban citizenship, who are expatriated here to the United States, and they all speak with one voice, that this man is a brutal dictator, he has been a mass murderer, and I agree
Let me
with...
ask you this. It's interesting that you know how you can tell the embargo's working? Because Castro's screaming. Why do you think he would want to come here? What, to talk to Mort Zuckerman? I mean, do you think he wants to go to the Bronx to hang out with a bunch of black people? If you think Fidel Castro loves black people... you've got something else coming. He's coming here to try to change, to try to affect the media, to appeal to the Peter Jennings and the Diane Sawyers and the Barbara Walters and others, to try to convince you that maybe this is really not a good idea.
Well, what I don't understand is why are titans, captains of industry toadying up to him? Why is David Rockefeller shaking his hand? Why are capitalists pumping him?
Well, I think it's you ought to realize the economic pressures on the United States not to open up trade with Cuba, because look, West Indian, Caribbean allies, Florida, their hotel industry, their tourist industry would be depressed because everybody would want to go to Cuba. They'd want to relive the days of Meyer Lansky and the great hotels and the gambling.
And Superman.
But the point is, Havana would be the place to go.
Well,
and
it
that's
was
why
at
the
one
capitalists
time.
want
I
to
was
get their dibs in.
I was in Havana in 1957. I will never forget. That was Batista days, that horrible Batista. We had a great time. While we were talking, ladies and gentlemen, we were joined by a man who really, if nobody needs an introduction on this panel, it certainly is the man that just walked in, Ed Koch.
There's the hypocrisy. There's the hypocrisy. Oh, Batista, he was so awful.
Oh,
He was the right... Oh, but you weren't.
I had a good time, Lynn. I can't tell you what. I can't tell you how I had a good time because we're in mixed company. But I'll tell you later.
We can all imagine. We all know.
Ed Koch, you've just joined us. You look a little tired.
Well, I just came from a press conference where I assailed Giuliani for excluding Castro and Arafat from city functions. I thought it was an outrage, and David Dinkins and I said that at the press conference.
Mayor, an outrage or
Yes,
just something that you thought was inappropriate?
Well, both.
Well, but it's different. Outrage conveys a strong
I'm outraged.
emotional...
No. Listen, you can't be any more anti-communist than Ed Koch. And over the years,
no one is suggesting otherwise.
Well, I just want to make that
I just don't
point.
understand why
and
this outrage.
I believe.
So he didn't let him show up
I
at
want
a
to
party
tell you
or a
why.
concert.
I'm going to tell you why. When you have New York City as the international capital of the world and the host city for the UN, for the mayor to pick and choose who he will allow to come to whether it's Gracie Mansion or Lincoln Center, to me, is an outrage. Now, I will tell you, for example, when I was mayor, I had 93 consuls general report to me. They report to the mayor, unlike ambassadors who report to the president. And we always had functions for them. And you know that I'm a very big supporter of the state of Israel, and that I have spoken out when others did not. But we invited every single consul general of the 7 states that were at war with Israel, confrontation states at war with the state of Israel, because
my role as mayor was different than my role as critic. And I criticized the Arab countries and I criticized Castro. The mayor has a responsibility which he did not live up to when he booted Arafat out of Lincoln Center.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just going back to the time you were mayor, and maybe you can correct me, I remember there were key times when you did take a position.
Definitely.
You shunned some of the Soviet diplomats.
No, that is not true. What I did was, my record's very clear here. I referred to the United Nations as a, I've always wanted to do that, I'm sorry. I referred to the United Nations as a cesspool, remember that? I did. Had nothing to do with my according them every single courtesy, and that's the exactly.
Nobody's disputing.
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor.
There is a difference.
I have to interrupt. Hold it. Stop. Everybody stop. We'll continue after these important messages.
As Jay wipes the sweat from his brow and gets a pep talk from Curtis, we'll take a break from the action on WABC.
And Todd, look, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 talk show hosts to talk to. Your cup runneth over, Todd.
But at my age, I never thought I'd be in the middle of a war. But I'd like to say to Mayor Koch, kudos to you. I agree with you 100% on Giuliani. You're 100% right. And Lynn, you're 100% right about Lionel. He's just taking the easy way out. What I'd like to ask is, I'd like to ask Ed Koch and Lynn Samuels and then Bob Grant for his explanation. Why did they think Bob Grant called Martin Luther King a scumbag? And why does he...
This is great. This is beautiful. How do these guys always get on?
Todd, that's
Which
Scott.
one do you think this was? That was Scott?
That was Scott.
That was Scott.
Yeah.
You know his... How does he do that, Jay? How does he get on all the time?
They wait for their opportunities, and
It's
they're probably
amazing.
paid to do it.
It's amazing. Let's try Martin from Poughkeepsie. Hello, Martin. Martin, are you there?
Yes, Ed Koch, I'd like to hear about why he called Martin Luther King a scumbag, too. And I'd like to know...
What you have done is so outrageous. I happen to have voted for the holiday for Martin Luther King Jr. when I was in the Congress, is my recollection. I think I was still there, and if I wasn't, I supported it as mayor. I want to tell you that when you refer to someone who is perceived as a hero by blacks and whites, Hispanics and Asians, and whose life was dedicated to peaceful and good race relations, and you use the kind of obscene language, you should be ashamed of yourself.
All right, let's try Candy from New York City. We'll take Candy. Maybe Candy's a fairly normal person. Let's try Candy.
Good afternoon, Mr. Grant. I'm a very normal person.
I'll be the judge of that, Candy.
Lionel, I'd like to say hello to all of you first, Lionel, Lynn, Jay, everyone. And I think you're all doing a great job. And I think that Mr. Boyce is great in doing something like this. And keep at it, guys. And I think that after the program, all of you hosts should go out together for a drink, because you're sure going to need it. And I love all of you, and I listen to you, Mr. Grant, every day. I'm a faithful listener.
Now, you said you were very normal, and then you went ahead and said all that.
Well, this is what happens when you listen to WABC. It does something wonderful for you, and it makes me feel much younger than I am. And I really love all of you.
And I agree with having the drink, 100%. I will do that.
All right, thank you, Candy. I think we have somebody standing at the microphone who would like to address the panel. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, what is your first name, and where are you from?
My name is Shoshana from Brooklyn.
Okay, you've called me many times,
Yes.
haven't you? Okay.
And it's a pleasure to see you all. Some of you, I didn't know what you looked like. Some of you are better looking than I thought you were. Some of you aren't, but that's okay. Okay, Mayor Koch, in 1991, you were instrumental in organizing a political demonstration in New York City trying to arouse the Jewish population in the aftermath of the death the murder of Yankel Rosenbaum. I was there. I was very moved by your speech. As a matter of fact, as a freelance writer, I wrote an article praising you in a local community newspaper. And you described yourself in the speech as a proud Jew. But I don't understand how a proud Jew could be taking the position that you're taking now against Mayor Giuliani. I think that you're... Let me finish, please, Mr. Koch. I think that you're... I think that your Jewish pride is schizophrenic, and you are not a liberal with sanity. You are a liberal with vanity.
Okay.
Oh, my. No, that can't be true.
Now let me explain to this young woman and others who have a similar point of view. I believe that what Rudy Giuliani has done has helped the enemies of Israel, has enhanced the reputation of Yasser Arafat, who can now go to 1 billion people, because Muslims represent about 1 billion people in the world, 22 Arab states and then many other Muslim states that are not Arab, and say, this is how they treated us so discourteously in New York City. Now, I want to tell you, I've criticized Arafat many times. I believe that there's no one in this city who has stood up for the state of Israel when it was under attack over the years as much as I did. But I am not a crazy, and I am not someone who believes it's helpful to the people of the city of New York, to the Jewish component of the city of New York, and there are probably about 19% of the people are Jewish in this town, to have New York City perceived as governed by someone who is unfair.
Mr. Mayor.
And discourteous.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I can understand if you felt that perhaps the mayor's response to Mr. Arafat at the concert was inappropriate. But to go the extra length and denounce him in a press conference, I think is inappropriate because a lot of people are still very emotionally connected with certain events that were perpetrated. Now, wait. You were mayor when Leon Klinghoffer was shot in a wheelchair and thrown overboard.
Yes, I was.
Maybe the mayor has more of an empathy for Mr. Klinghoffer 10 years later.
Can I add something if I could?
It's ridiculous.
Could I add something?
Ma'alot. Wait a minute. Ma'alot was the handiwork of Yasser Arafat.
I want to tell you why that's ridiculous.
I'll tell you, if you have a private party, I want to
tell you. Stop for a minute. The fact is that Syria, which was included in the mayor's ceremony, is held responsible as the chief supporter of terrorism worldwide and in Lebanon.
Got one right and one wrong.
Just a moment. And 250 Marines were killed in Lebanon, and Syria could have stopped it and supported the terrorists. Now, what I'm simply saying is, now, just a minute. What I'm simply saying is, you know, if you're the mayor of the city, if you're the governor, if you're the president, you have different roles to play. And one of the roles is to be critical. Yeah. And the other is to represent the city, the state, and the government in a responsible way.
You just gave a great reason why you should have had a press conference denouncing him for allowing Syria to attend the conference.
Oh, no.
Not for denouncing him for kicking out Arafat. You didn't answer the question.
I think I have. The demagogues in this city, they're small in number. You know, white demagogues and black demagogues and Jewish demagogues and Christian demagogues. The demagogues.
And mayoral demagogues.
Yes, there are mayoral demagogues. Can I ask a question? But I'm not one of them. Can I ask a question? Oftentimes, people will look to the audiences of talk radio to find out what the community thinks. And I like to ask you, by a show of applause, do you agree with what Mayor Giuliani did? All right. And those of you who disagree, by a show of applause.
Bob, I would reflect on the aplomb with which you deliver that copy, but I would be accused of sycophancy.
Bob? All right, this is the War of the Talk Show host. I'm delighted that it's turning out to be as spirited as it was advertised. We have...
Mean-spirited, you mean?
Mean-spirited? That's a word that you people over on the left love to use, like you have a monopoly on righteousness and goodness.
No, you just recognize when somebody is totally motivated by hatred and negativity.
Who is mean-spirited? Wait a minute. Who has been mean-spirited? Ed, Lionel, Jay, Curtis? Who's been mean-spirited?
Jay and Curtis.
Jay and Curtis. How do you like that?
Bob, if I could, I wanted to mention...
Spiritedness is often in the eye of the beholder.
I wanted to mention, Bob, what Shoshone had spoken about when she was directing a question
Shoshone's an Indian tribe, I believe it was.
At Mayor Ed Koch. And it is important because you mentioned Crown Heights, which was a burning issue for many of us who were broadcasting on WABC. I know myself, I was there 2 months round the clock with the Guardian Angels escorting Jews away from the mobs. But I will tell you this. When it came time for Jews and Gentiles to stand up for Jews who are under attack in their own backyard. I didn't see Bobby Abrams. I didn't see Mark Green. I didn't see Ruth Messenger. I saw Ed Koch there first and foremost where he needed to be. And I will never forget, Mr. Mayor, when you spoke at that rally, because there were so few prominent Jews who were ducking, who were missing in action, when Jews right here in New York City, in America, where I never thought it would happen, were under attack for 3 days, while the mayor, David Dinkins, was in his cummerbund playing tennis, wondering which way is up. Let's not forget that.
No. See, Curtis, you're forgetting the master plan, the strategy of David Dinkins. He was letting people vent so as to prevent violence.
All the while in his cummerbund, which is really tough if you think about it.
All right, that's true.
I would have given him the back of my hand, but I was practicing my backhand.
Ed Koch, your physiognomy is speaking volumes. I don't know, though, how to interpret it.
No, I am very proud of the fact that I was very much involved in defending the Jewish Crown Heights community, as others at this table, and Curtis physically out on the ground there, as he described. Absolutely correct. And I said many times in print as well as on the radio that what bothered me more than anything else was a comment that I saw, which was in the Times and attributed to an anonymous individual, which said, and it was a Jewish activist, but at a high level, who said, it bothers me to have to come to the defense of the Hasidim in Crown Heights. In other words, he was separate and apart from them. And I excoriated that kind of thinking because it really was reminiscent of a statement that we on the other side, that we often quote Minister Niemeyer in Germany, who you may recall after the war said, first they came for the gypsies, and I was not a gypsy, so I did not protest. And then they came for the communists, and I was not a communist, and I didn't protest. And then they came for the Jews, and I was not a Jew, and I did not protest. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to protest. And I felt very strongly about that the Jewish community, outside of the Orthodox community, which did rise to the defense of the Jews who were beleaguered in Crown Heights, did not stand up. And then I organized a march. I said, we will have a march in opposition to what happened there. And I think we got 2,000 people who came to that march. That's nothing, 2,000 people.
You didn't get a 1 million man march?
Now, that's the point
Who's counting?
That is the point I'm making. We all know that, just to switch for one moment to the 1 million man march, Farrakhan is a danger to this country. He's like Adolf Hitler in 1922, when everybody said, oh, please, and it's unimportant. And the fact is that Hitler could not have gotten 1 million Germans to come to a market square. Farrakhan did, and you better take him seriously. Right. And the problem is, you can't get 1 million whites to come out and march in support of human rights for everybody. They just leave it to everybody else, and there is an enormous danger walking this land today.
All right. I think we all agree on that. Even Lynn. Lynn,
redeemed yourself.
I don't think Lynn does agree with
well,
that, do
all
you,
right.
Lynn?
Lynn, since I'm more or less cast here in the role of moderator, I will ask you, would you care to comment? I don't want tomorrow to hear you say, how come I didn't get a chance to say anything?
It doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't. But I mean, obviously...
The trouble.
If 12% of the population is black and some small portion of them follow Farrakhan, he is no danger. He's not Hitler. People came together. People came together in a positive way. And, you know, it's interesting. There are a couple hundred people sitting here, and I heard people on ABC saying, oh, all those people, what, don't they have jobs? They took a day off. You know, so what's the crowd here? Nobody had anything to do? Or a job?
Lynn, let me ask you this question. The militia, which we all believe is fascist and racist, but they have a number of things that you would approve of. The government should not persecute people because of their religion, talking about Waco. The government should not shoot women and children unless they are at that time themselves in danger, talking about Ruby Ridge. And supposing the militia held a rally in Washington, in which they said, we want to be protected from the arbitrary government which shoots people under these circumstances and burns them out under these circumstances. Come and join us. And if a million whites came down there because they said, we agree with that, you know. And then they said, when the reporter said, how can you be here with these fascists? And they said, well, we don't agree with their fascism. We agree with this, not with that. Would you believe him? Would you believe him? If
yes,
decent,
I would.
You would believe anybody. Now,
first of all, being an American has more to do.
Let me just finish. Now, if decent white leaders, civic and political, joined with David Duke on a platform in Washington addressing this militia, would you hold them responsible?
White people
I'm sorry, but I have to interrupt.
I've been given black people do.
I've been given a signal here, and we'll continue from the Museum of Radio and Television live and direct in just a moment.
As Lynn goes to the powder room to relace her gloves, we'll take a break from the action on WABC.
Supposing Mayor Giuliani had decided that because the British were not allowing the IRA representatives to participate to the extent that they think they should in the peace process, and because he thinks that the British are preventing the reunification of the 32 counties, and because he's incensed that the continent's international court has found the British in a violation of the law in having shot 3 IRA terrorists. Instead of taking them prisoner, they killed them. And supposing Mayor Giuliani said, because of that, I'm not going to allow Great Britain's ambassador to participate in any of the functions over which I have control. What would you have said if he had said that?
Well, there are many people who came, heads of state, and you could take issue with just about any of them.
No, I'm asking about that one.
Okay, that one in particular.
Yeah. What would you have said if he had done that? He would have pleased maybe some Irish, not many.
Right.
But in the same way he pleases some Jews who are very, very aggressive, and I hope you don't mind the expression right-wing in the sense of...
But after all, Mr. Mayor...
Support of the opposition to the peace process.
Again...
those people... will do anything to stop the peace process.
Maybe you are marginally correct, but my disagreement with you is by degree. In other words, after all, perhaps let's concede for a moment that the mayor acted mistakenly or inappropriately in barring this wonderful humanitarian from the concert. It's not as if he shunned Mother Teresa. He shunned somebody, after all, who is a cold-blooded murderer who killed the children at Mahalo. So let it go.
No, let me explain to you why you're wrong.
Wait a minute.
Just a minute. I'm going to explain. No, you're not. No, you're not. I'm going to take Jay on here. You see, the mayor of the city of New York is known throughout the world. I've traveled extensively, and wherever I've gone, people knew me, and it wasn't because it was Ed Koch, it was because I was the mayor of the city of New York, and the same is true of David Dinkins and Rudy Giuliani. You have a responsibility. This city has within it Jews and Arabs and 175 different races and religions, and you don't have to be even-handed in the sense of saying, well, I'm going to say something that will please the Jews, and I'm going to say something that will please the Arabs. No, you have a right to speak up as you honestly feel.
Right.
No question about it. I ask a question, and then I'll stop in a minute. But you also have a responsibility to the city. And the city is the host city. You cannot simply say to Mr. Arafat, who's sitting there, and you send over one of your people, Randy Mastro, who I know, he's not a goon. He's a very decent guy. But he went over to him and said, get out. He booted him out. You cannot do that as the mayor of the city of New York.
Can I ask something? Is it, Mr. Mayor, is there anything that the Mayor Giuliani could have done, for example, that is within the realm of correctness as far as you're concerned? For example, I'm not going to shake your hand, or I won't look you in the eye, or I won't invite you over to a family barbecue. Is there anything? Of course. Right. So obviously what you're saying is this particular function, in your opinion,
I mean, any
was something
any function that was open to the vast majority of members of the United Nations
by invitation,
had to be open to every member of the United Nations. But if you are the mayor of the host city.
But the mayor said not to defend him, but his theory was, this is a separate, I'm going to give you all the protection you need. I'm going to make sure that the police department certainly takes care of you. But this is a private function under the auspices of my office.
Oh, it's
not personal,
private.
and I am disinviting you.
This is not,
and apparently all the other individuals who were disinvited didn't show up.
I'm going to tell you why this is not a private
function. Arafat crashed the party.
I'm going to tell you why this is not a
Woolley.
private function. Without my personally knowing this, I don't have any doubt that what I'm telling you now is correct. There are 4 or 5 major corporations that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars or maybe millions to provide these functions that the mayor has. It's all taken off on their income taxes, and we're all paying for it. It's an expense of their conducting business. It wasn't done with Rudy Giuliani's money. It was done with your money, if you understand that when a business deducts an expense, they don't pay tax.
With Bob tiring from their constant bickering, he needs to lay down. We'll take this break and be right back on WABC.
Ed, I want to turn things back to you.
I have to ask him a question.
Please.
What do you think of the pending police bill in Albany?
I want to tell you what Shelley Silver, who is the speaker, and Joe Bruno, who is the majority leader, did is an outrage, and I'll tell you what that bill does. What that bill does is to remove from the city the regular powers that it employs for compulsory arbitration, and having been there, I know that that is what protects the city from outrageous pay increases for city employees. And the second thing that bill does is remove the power of the mayor to consolidate the 3 police forces, and says to each individual cop that the commissioner cannot assign you to the subways or to the housing, but you have a right to refuse. And I think if that bill is signed by the governor, it will be devastating in a whole host of ways to the city. But I think the governor is going to veto it. And
why did he initiate it?
Well, because when the governor, no question about it, the legislation was originally proposed by the governor when he was a small frog in a small pool known as Peekskill. But he's now the governor of the state of New York, and he understands the responsibilities that he has, which are greater than the parochial needs of Peekskill.
They say he is intending to veto it, but Sheldon Silver is holding things up, and they want to lobby the governor. The PBA in particular wants to twist his arm a little bit.
That is why Sheldon Silver should be excoriated, that he would allow this bill to go through. And it was passed, I think, by not a majority, but maybe everybody in the assembly, and every senator, with the exception of David Patterson, who voted no, to his great credit. What Shelley is trying to do is to, instead of sending the legislation to the governor for yay or nay, veto or signing, he wants to allow a period within which the PBA can threaten the governor. And I think that Shelley Silver has so demeaned himself, I would not be upset if they threw him out.
Well, since when? I'm sorry. Since when is Shelley Silver such a friend of the PBA? I didn't realize he was that empathic.
You have to understand that the PBA is the most powerful, with the UFT, the teachers union, the 2 most powerful unions in the state. And what they do is they provide the campaign funds and workers. And they have enormous authority in both the Assembly and the State Senate because of the money and because of the troops. Enormous.
If I can, I'd like to ask you a question, Mr. Mayor, because I know you have to go. You've taken on our present mayor for kicking Yasser Arafat out of a gathering of international leaders. But sometime in the future, there's going to be an international gathering of world religious leaders here in New York City. And included in that number is going to be Louis Farrakhan.
Yeah.
Now, what should the mayor then do? If all of a sudden he is hosting a gathering in which Louis Farrakhan, I would hope he would tell him to get the hell out of here. You have no place here in any facility in New York.
Look, Curtis, I want to explain.
Goes from the sublime
Curtis,
to the ridiculous.
Stop it. Let me say this to you. I have spoken out on Louis Farrakhan many times, and in fact, I've written columns on the subject. Very few people have, and I've taken lots of flack from a small number of people who don't like what I say and what I write. And I will continue to denounce Louis Farrakhan because I consider him to be a threat to democracy in the country. On the other hand, if there is a meeting of religious people, I would hope that they wouldn't invite Louis Farrakhan because of his anti-white, his anti-Catholic, his anti-Semitic statements. But assume that they do. We're talking about nationwide religious convention. Then the mayor has to make a decision. If the mayor says, I'm going to invite these people to Gracie Mansion, he doesn't pick and choose which people who came to the convention he will invite. Or the mayor says, I can't invite any of you because I'm so disgusted with the fact that you are allowing anti-Semites, Catholic bashers to participate, and anti-white people to participate in your convention. But he cannot pick and choose.
Well, I would hope he would exercise that judgment and separate the cancer from the mass of religious leaders and say, hey, Farrakhan, stay home. You're not welcome at Gracie Mansion.
All right, there he goes. Ed Koch, who can be heard on WABC Monday through Friday from 11 until 12, and who is one of the few ex-politicians to make a successful transition to talk show host. You know, the line between politics and show business is really almost indistinguishable. As a matter of fact, they say the most successful politicians, not only in America, but in the history of the world, have been great performers. So who knows? You may be looking at well, I don't know, are we great performers or not? What do you think?
Well, I remember once, wasn't there some movement once to elect you to a district in Congress from Forest Hills, was it?
Well,
years ago?
Yeah, no, it wasn't Forest Hills, but yeah, there was. But that isn't why I raised the question, Jay. Come on, let's just. So, Lionel, Ed,
do you think I mean, this is kind of maybe a rhetorical question, but do you think that we're performers? Do you believe us? Do you think this is just shtick? This is all shtick?
Depends who it is, Lionel.
What happens if you were to hear, for example, every day, let's say from 2 in the morning until 2 in the morning, a lecture series without passion? You think you'd listen? It's amazing how so many people say, sometimes it's shtick, and I defy anybody.